Hello, everybody. I'm clicking and I'm clacking. Bullet here is a rubbing and a rabbing, and we are doing all right. We are more upbeat than usual. Why? We don't know. Well, Bullet's always upbeat. I'm just me. Sometimes I'm a droop, but yeah, it's just life. What are you gonna do? Something I want to start doing a little more. Promoting my social media. If you want to get a hold of me, just whether you want to follow other parts of what I'm doing in my advocacy, if you want to, look into see other things I'm doing, see how I'm dressing and all the other subject matters I'm tackling just by myself. See more videos and pictures of Bullet. See some stuff of my family and see me rant and yell. See me show emotion. So much. Mainly you want to follow me on Instagram and TikTok where I am my blurred opinion. So if you know the name of the podcast, you know how to get a hold of me on social media. I will respond back to you and, just say hello. Say where you found me from. But yes, let's get into this. I appreciate you guys. We're getting closer and closer to episode 200, and I'll be honest, I don't have an idea what I'm going to do for it, but I'll figure something out by then. But thank you for being with me this long and on this journey with me. I'm learning a lot about myself, so thank you, and let's get into this great guest. Thank you, guys. I know I say thank you a lot, but I am very appreciative of all of you, even if you are silent. I won't mention any names, just all of you. But people are listening. I can see the numbers. So, but yeah, I'll see you in a few seconds. I messed up. There we go. Alright, everybody, I am here again. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, just because I have so many in the vault there. But I found this wonderful person on Podmatch, and she's got like a very upbeat personality, which is nice because, sometimes I'm not always I shouldn't say I don't want to do these. It's just some days are better than others, especially with mental health. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this. And sometimes I need the guest to just kind of brighten me up and make me feel better about myself, because man, some days are just a struggle. But I do genuinely love doing these, and I appreciate the friendships and relationships I make through this. But she has a story that again needs to be told, and like I said, I like discussing all kind of issues and topics, and we're gonna just delve right into it. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us your name, obviously?
Sure. My name is Rhonda Parker Taylor. I'm an author, an entrepreneur, and an academic researcher. As far as life, I try to be committed to mastering it rather than trying to build it on achieving personal goals and aspirations. Why I say that is because I find I feel more fulfilled if I'm actively seeking joy and inspiration through those personal goals and inspirations. And one might say, well, how do you become an author and an entrepreneur and an academic researcher without setting personal goals? Well, personal goals are there, but what I find is I have to be willing to go through the wins and the losses also, to make sure that I completely, fulfill myself. And I wasn't always academically strong. So as far as disabilities, I have learning disabilities. How many of you ever have flunked kindergarten? Well, that was me. I was the one that flunked kindergarten, and I never really grew academically until later on in life. So my learning disabilities and my inability to understand, basic concepts held me back at first. But then once I learned how to thrive and accept my challenges and undertake it, I grew this commitment to mastering things and not looking at it as a pass fail.
Yeah. See, I never failed kindergarten, but I failed first grade. So it's just the next step over. And the reason I failed is just, I'd gone through a lot of trauma at that point, and I had my eye condition had already fully kicked in. But I also went through molestation in school. I went through a lot of bullying, not just by the kids, but also by teachers. And so I
Mhm.
was like I was just a mess. But why I failed first grade, I don't even like it was never really fully explained to me because I went through first grade. It's not like my grades were terrible or anything because you don't really need to have good grades. It was just like the school just kind of just forgot and was just like, oh yeah, he's back for first grade, and you have a new teacher, but you're doing this again, and it's like there was never like a real reason why. I also, I wasn't very vocal or anything because I was just, I was tormented. So I was just one of these kids that just, unfortunately was abused and depressed and whatever. But I don't even really fully know why. But yeah, I kind of understand your situation.
Okay. Well, I did get a reason, and that was they felt my maturity level was not where it should be for me to be able to excel. And that kind of ended up my stigma all through school, and what I found is I tried the opposite. Instead of, fighting, and I tried to be the social one and have, and try to be the one that supported everybody and be the caregiver of everybody's emotions. So, I wasn't necessarily bullied by students, but I would say that because they all accepted me because of that seeking joy through others and engaging in activities that were pleasurable, that were social. But at the same time, maybe the teachers at first didn't understand me and didn't understand where my strengths and weaknesses were until I found a mentor later on in my high school years that understood some of the challenges that I went through. And she took me by the hand and helped me pass all the proficiency tests so I could graduate. And that was kind of the turning point. So sometimes we have to find strangers that
Yeah.
are good mentors to help us stay focused, find the lessons and things, and accept what our real skills are. And that's what my journey and path ended up being. And that was being able to accept that, okay, I had certain limitations, but like I can't do math in my head, but I have a doctorate.
Sure.
Well, how can you have a doctorate without doing math in your head? Well, once you get past a certain age, there's all kinds of, Excel and, all these different programs that you're allowed to use in greater education. Ask me to do any kind of even simple adding and subtracting in my head. And, if it gets past one digit, I'm going to pull out a calculator.
Yeah.
My mind just doesn't work that way. Same thing if I'm shooting a text, for instance. My learning disabilities, I could think everything's right in the text until I hit send, and then I'll see the 6 typos. It's like my brain doesn't even see it.
Sure.
It's put the right words in there. So, everybody, and I tell a lot of people that I work with now in my mentoring practice that everybody has some kind of disability. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be learning disabilities. It could be emotional. It could be, trauma that they've gone through, so some kind of PTSD or whatever people have gone through in their life. And your body memorizes every one of those negative experiences. And for every one negative experience, you may have had 100 positive ones, but your body memorizes those negative ones for some reason.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like it's coded, into your makeup. So it's important that you don't allow that sadness to block your joy.
Yeah. Well, I like, what you were saying when it comes to how you kind of, like having a disability, it's like, you kind of have to have the world, like you have to acclimate the world to your disability. Like you find a way to do it. It's just, there's always another alternative route. You just have to find it. It's not easy, but it's like, yeah, there is a way to do math in your head if you find the proper way, because there's things that just don't work for you. That's why we have those IEP meetings, and that we have certain conferences that just say, hey, like, okay, he or she needs extra time, but if you give them and you allow them to have the proper technology and the proper time, they'll figure it out. You just got to give it to them. You got to understand that there's certain, like for me, chalkboards were horrible for me because of my vision. It was just very hard to see. Now, I could see it if I was up close, but then the other students couldn't see it because I'm in the way.
Right.
So it's like at some point you just kind of have to have the teacher either take the notes for you, or you have someone to help you, or whether after class they allow you to come write it down. However, you find ways to do it, or you use a recorder. There's just different ways of going about it. But that's one of the things I've always loved interviewing people with disabilities, is like trying to find their ways and their methods and the tools that they use to kind of get through life, because it's different. And it's different for every disability, and you could have the same disability, and they may use different things. It's always
Right.
fascinating to me, because it's I think in the beginning we kind of get very shameful. Like I have this thing called a CCTV. It's just this big TV that has like a moving tray where you put a book on, or put anything underneath, and you can read. And I would have them in my class, and especially in high school where you're starting to grow up, obviously puberty and all that. And you're trying to get people to like notice you, but not for the reasons that they're noticing you for, when it comes to the disability and things. And I had one like almost in the front of the class, and I would sit there, and as we're reading Hamlet or whatever we're reading, it's in the front of the class, and some kids would come up and stick their hand underneath and go, "Hey, look at that." But as time goes on, it's like you start to realize these are the things that are like important, and these are the things that are like it's great to have these things. There's nothing shameful of having it. Obviously, when you're a teenager, it's hard to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's great when you realize like what because there's times where I'm sitting on the couch and I'm just like trying to watch TV, and I realize like, oh, dumbass, you're visually impaired. You can't sit back here, and I can just laugh it off. And I go up and sit in my recliner, and I sit closer to the TV, and I watch a show. But I don't like sit there and dwell on it like, oh my God, look how close you are. This is stupid. But years ago, I'd be very shameful and sad about it and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm rambling, but I love how everyone has their own unique techniques and tools to get through life.
Well, and it's building resilience when you accept your limitations.
Yeah.
You can build the resilience and get inner strength to develop a growth mindset versus a limiting mindset.
Yeah.
When you stigmatize yourself, you limit yourself. So maybe I would never have became a best-selling author of Crossroads, because I might not have ever made myself vulnerable to put my writing out there, knowing that that this is an area that is very difficult for me. And yes, I had to spend extra time editing, and yes, I had to put all the things in the infrastructure of my world to make me successful. But at the same time, I learned that working on my skills and learning from others allowed me to build that resilience.
Yeah.
At all times.
Sure.
And then I was able to undertake challenging activities such as writing my first fiction novel.
Sure. And it allows you to kind of accept your, because I would imagine, at least for me, it was in the very beginning, it was hard to accept, like, okay, I can't drive. Like, I really hurt my feelings because it was like, oh man, everyone else drives. Like, it's already one notch against me. It's one X. And then as you go on, like, obviously in life, people try to tell you just by stigmatizing you by going, hey, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. But like, as you go through life and you experience it and you run into walls, you start to realize like what your real limitations are, and you're able to accept them a little easier and tolerate them more because you've found other ways to do other things that you couldn't imagine doing.
Right. And when you set a positive mindset for yourself and an outlook on your life, then you gain the feeling of inner peace and well-being.
Yeah. And
so that will help you with all the other limitations that come along with the trauma of having these limitations.
Yeah.
And that's very important for you to be able to accept them and have the freedom to pursue your own interests and passions.
Yeah.
It's part of self-care, really, when you think about it. If you can accept yourself for who you are, and every good and every bad in that, you're really becoming self-aware and have a clear perception of your own personality, strengths, weaknesses, and beliefs, and that's motivational, plus it's and freeing emotionally, because when you compare yourself to what we might consider the norm. My dad used to always tell me as a child, and I used to get mad because usually it's when I wanted something, he would say this, but because there was 5 of us, and he'd say, quit comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
And when you compare yourself, you take away your own purpose. And, whether it was a friend that maybe got a better car, or a sibling that got to do something that, because I was one of the younger ones and I couldn't do it. If I compared myself, I lost my own purpose. And really what ends up happening is I ended up destroying myself and, not practicing self-care. I wasn't having any mindful state at all of my strengths when I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to kind of get off the path that you're on because there's so many traps, and there's just so much there that you just, it's almost like a kid mentality where you see something, you go, ooh, look at that. And then you just randomly just walk off. And it's just like, because there's so many things there that you can just pass by, and it just catches your eye. And then you realize it's 3 days later and you're like, oh my God, I'm still here in this stagnant world where I'm being very complacent and I'm not doing what I need to be doing. And I told myself I was going to do this and do that. Like I was talking about something on TikTok the other day, just about how I don't like to, like, I was in a depression mode at one point, but I allowed the depression to take over me because of, I knew how much I could fight it off if I really wanted to. I just wanted a day to just kind of heal, but I wanted to take in the depression and just live with it. But I knew, like years ago, I would have allowed it to take me for weeks and months and whatever. And I'm like, I know what I can handle at this point. And so
Right.
I just wanted a day to just kind of feel the pain, and just because it was just something actually happened, and I'm just like, there's nothing wrong with being down about this. But I knew it wasn't going to take me off my path for long. It was just something I just needed to take a pit stop and just rejuvenate and come back the next day stronger.
Deal with that sadness. So,
Yeah.
You gave your a day, then set that limit. Okay, I'm only allowing myself to feel the sadness or, whatever anger or whatever the emotion that someone might be feeling out there in your audience. And, identify what you're feeling and say it's okay and I'm okay. And then just keep telling yourself, I'm fine, I'm okay. I just feel sad, or whatever it may be, and practice going through the process of washing that clean to find joy again. And maybe it does take a day, but set that limitation of I call it my self pity party day. Where you just say, hey, I it's just been a bad day, but then honor yourself consciously for overcoming that.
Yeah, for sure.
Joy doesn't come from others. It comes from yourself and from within yourself. So if you can interrupt those negative thoughts about yourself and replace them with statements that honor yourself, I'm fine, I'm whole, I did my best, I love myself, whatever the affirmation that, is best for you, then what ends up happening is you end up appreciating yourself. Now, for me, I like when I read, sometimes I do reading to pull myself into a positive state. I find sometimes it's better for me to not only visually do it, but also hear it. So I will have my computer read it to me as I read with it sometimes, because it seems like it becomes more a part of me.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can hear from other people things that really help redefine that mindfulness moment. And it might jog you just enough, to stop judging yourself. We're not good or bad, Instead, we want to be mindful that life is worth living in the moment and appreciating who we are for our uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some things happen, like I lost a job, and certain things happened recently in the last couple months, and I had to kind of figure out what I was complicit in. Not necessarily the job part, but just me in life. Because I was like, I haven't taken any real time to heal in life. Because life just continues to move quickly, and it's like there's parts of me, even though I'm 35 years old, and the disability, the disease that I had was 31 years ago. It's like I don't know if I ever really took a whole lot of time, because life just kept going and it kept hitting me, and I just never really took the time, and I just then went into teenage years, and other things kept happening, and then dating and all these other crap, and life just kind of went out of control. And I was like, I want to take these 2 months to just heal me, but also look deep inside and see what problems I'm causing. And one of the things I realized is I always knew I wasn't like the most disciplined, and I was very like, I'm a good person, but sometimes it was very hard to stick to something. And I don't know if it's an OCD, I don't know what, but I was like, you know what? I've had this white dry eraser board in my apartment forever. I barely use it. And I'm like, I'm going to use this for good, because it's sometimes like I would have a week off of work, and I would go, you know what? I'm going to get all these things done. And I would look at the list when that week ended, and I would see like 2 or 3 things done, and there was like 10 things on there, and I'd be pissed at myself. And I would internally just destroy myself. Like, oh my God, see, you can't do anything right, blah, blah, blah. And then, so with this board, I'm like, you know what? I wrote down some goals I want to complete in the next 4 years. And some of them I'm really working on and already making strides to. But then on the other side of the board, I'm writing down like really mundane goals. Like, hey, like let's say, like I have the podcast interview on there today. Just one, so I don't forget, but also just so like when I'm done this, I can write a check mark next to it. But I'm not even just doing important things. I'm writing down, hey, wipe down countertops in the kitchen. Hey, text so-and-so. Hey, whatever. Just feed my cat. Just things like that. I'm writing these things down, and then I write a check mark next to it, because it's an accomplishment, and it's slowly starting to build discipline, because now another thing that like was hidden, that I was like, oh, I'm not that disciplined. But then I was like, hey, you have been doing your podcast for 3.5 years, and you never thought you would ever do anything for 3.5 years. So maybe if you can attribute certain characteristics like you're using within the podcast, maybe you use that for exercise, because you're constantly up and down with wanting to exercise. So now I'm exercising 5 to 6 times days a week. And just little by little, I start to build up confidence in myself. I'm starting to like myself more, because I'm starting to put on a little more muscle. I'm starting to just some of the things that are coming out of this whole trials that I'm trying to accomplish here are really kind of coming to fruition. And now I'm starting to like myself more. So it's really been this journey that I've been on in the last 2 months that really has kind of surprised me, and what's come out of it.
Right. I completely understand that. To me, it's about not giving up. You're talking about your podcast for 3.5 years, and you never thought. That's persistence.
Yeah.
You were persistent, and persistence to me overshadows even talent most of the time, because you're out there trying. My being from the Midwest, they would say, they would call that grit. You've got the grit to push through, even when things aren't optimal. What if you were like Mike panning the surfboard, or you got attacked by a shark? Would you get back out there? Would you do it? Adversity happens to everyone, and we can't avoid it. You talk about losing a job, or something that derails your life. It could be, one of our fur babies getting sick, or what, a family member, or even ourselves. And maybe our own mental or physical health deteriorates at times. We come down with a cold, and we can't get things master what you normally would master. Well, if we can be persistent, then that overcome a lot of times the skills that we may not have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and as time goes on, you learn more, and like I always talk about with mental health, like one of the things people don't realize is like, you're like, well, I don't really have a reason to live. And you're like, okay, is there anything you like are excited for? You're like, well, I'm excited for the new so and so album to come out. I'm like, all right, so when's that coming out? in 3 weeks. So I'm like, so you want to be alive for the next 3 weeks, right? Yes, because I want to see, I want to hear that album. I'm like, okay, so you want to be alive for 3 weeks. That's great. There's a lot that could happen in 3 weeks. You could find another inspiration, because she, let's say, I don't know, whatever, Taylor Swift, who's always in the news, is like, oh, I can't wait for the next Taylor Swift album. Well, she's not saying she's retiring, so she might put out an album next year. Oh, that's true. Maybe I should be alive for her next album. And like, you start to kind of grab onto little things to want to be alive, whether it's like a show or something. You're like, I can't wait for the next season. It's like, well, you got 3 months. So, and it kind of builds that just stability there, where you're like, okay, I there's something there I want to live for. And it may be small. I think a lot of people think you have to hold on to, a loved one or whatever, a job or whatever, your kids or whatever. Like, no, you just find whatever it is, because some people don't have those amenities. People don't really have a parent or a loved one. They might be alone. And
Right.
whatever it is they can grasp onto to keep alive, so be it. Because life, I think, as much as I do, like, this life can be very cold and lonely and sad and scary. And so you have to grasp onto whatever you can and just kind of hold on to the bumpy ride. And once the storm is over, then, you come back outside. But, it gets really scary.
And sometimes I think you're on a really important point for those in the audience that may struggle. Sometimes you have to not only just find those little nuggets of time, but also plan some of them for yourself. Like for me, I also have a very unhealthy back. I was born with scoliosis, so so sometimes the aches and the pains may overshadow the daily joy that I try to practice every day. But then I might say, this is the day I'm going to book a massage, or take a nap and put, lay flat for my back, to get rid of the pain a little bit, practicing different ways of pain management that doesn't require the medical community. And by doing that, by taking a break from the day-to-day world that, makes things hard, I'm nurturing myself. So you're saying find the one or two little goals, the little nuggets, and also find the one or two things to put love, towards yourself. Whether it be a nap, a massage, a stretching, or like you said, working out, or listening to the sounds of nature. Whatever that can bring you that joy, and remind yourself that your job is not only working out there in the world, accomplishing certain goals, but it's also taking care of yourself. Soak your feet. You don't even. Some people are like, oh, I don't have the money to go get a manicure and pedicure. Well, you don't have to have money to soak your feet in your own home.
Yeah. No.
Just the simple things that bring you joy, and then, like you said, finding these little affirmations, maybe a word that can help you contemplate the happiness that you have, and paint a picture, of yourself that's happy.
Yeah, so like I recently, like, through this 2 months that I've been on, I've also, like, my friend of mine told me to get on TikTok, and I'm only talking about it because I'm not a big fan of social media, and I only get on because I'm promoting a podcast, and I'm trying to advocate for mental health and disabilities and so on. And I was already on other platforms, but I was like, all right, I'll get on TikTok because it's the most popular right now, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm developing an audience and so on, but one of the things I wanted to talk about, because being on there for the last 2 months, I put out a video about just like being original, because I'm like, hey, I'm trying to love who I am, be my own person, and be as transparent with the audience by saying, hey, look, I'm trying to, because I do like every day, like how I'm feeling mentally. It's just like a mental health blog update, and then I just put out other content throughout the day. And I'm just, I give, if I'm feeling sad, I'm gonna say, hey, this is how I feel. I'm not gonna just cry because I need to cry, or just because it may draw some more support or followers. I'm gonna just show you, if I'm angry, if I'm depressed, and if I'm happy, I'm just gonna tell you how I feel, or I feel just a little off, whatever. And one of the things that, like, I talked about on there is, like, how many people that I follow, or I've gone through their videos, and I'm like, I don't even know who these people are, because they don't share who they are. They just post things, they sell stuff, or they post, things where they barely even talk. They make facial expressions, or they dance, or whatever. And like, one of the things I've been so proud of myself is I'm just showing you who I am, raw and unfiltered. And I'm like, this is it. Like, I deal with brain fog. I deal with chronic pain. I deal with my vision. I may get up in the morning, I look like absolute shit, but I'm like, hey, this is a video of me. This is how I feel in the morning. Oh, look, there's my cat. Like, there's nothing fabricated. There's no filters. There's no effects. This is just me showing you kind of how I go through life with a disability, with mental health, and so on. And it's also, like I said, it's helped, and the podcast is also the beginning of this, but it's helped me to kind of grow as a person and love who I am, and not be shameful of what it is that I, the things that I used to be embarrassed about, where, maybe I'd wear sunglasses a little more so people wouldn't see that my eyes are a little off, or maybe I'd be afraid to show when I'm having a panic attack or whatever, because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. Now it's like, hey, if you think I'm crazy, you think I'm crazy. I know what I am deep down. I know I'm a good person. And you're going to get the best of both worlds. And you may see some things that are like, oh, like, why would someone share that? But it's like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm sharing these things with you because there are people out there that don't feel like anyone else is going through it, and I don't want them to feel alone. And if I can reach one person, I know that's like a generic thing to say, but if you can reach one person to help them, then I did my job. And that's kind of the whole thing of being an advocate. So
I think what you also showing your audience is a unique way of self-care.
Yeah.
You're showing people that it's okay to struggle and be okay with that. Yeah. And that the social media that you're describing, it requires active engagement in your self-care.
Yeah.
So you're naming it and you're claiming it and you're doing these practices in the simplest form, and that's your communication. And it's showing your humanity and that you're a human being in those practice in your practice of identifying your strengths, your weaknesses, and your functioning. And you're, like you said, if you show one person this sense of energy and vitality, and sometimes down, and it will give them the confidence to do the same and be themselves. So many times we try to be somebody else, especially in the social media world. You're always going to find someone bigger, badder, prettier, smarter, can do videos faster, they can dance, or you can't, or whatever, you know what I mean? Oh boy, wouldn't you love to be able to do that? But then instead appreciate their uniqueness, and then appreciate your uniqueness that you're describing in this episode of your podcast, is that you're trying to build positive relationships in the good and the bad. And that's totally different than one that might be someone that can dance and do these very unique different types of videos, but it's equally unique to your being, and you're making other people's lives more satisfying too.
Yeah, no, I think everyone should be able to do whatever they want. If they want to dance, and whatever, there's so many of these people that are just wondering why certain things don't go a certain way, and it's like, hey, like, you're not being honest with people. You're not sharing who you are. Like, you can do these kind of videos, but like, why don't you let us know who you are? Like, what do you like? Like, I don't know anything about you. You just dance, or you just smile, and you do effects. Like, I don't know. And I see a lot of people with disabilities trying to do the same thing too, where it's like, man, like, I know you have chronic pain. Talk about that. Every so often, just throw some. It doesn't have to be, the focal point of your content, but once in a while, say, hey, look, man, I'm suffering from this, because you know how many women? Because there are people that probably would look at me and go, oh, he's white, so whatever, or he's a man, or whatever. He wouldn't understand, even if I do. But it's like, just you being a woman, just you being, Hispanic or whatever, someone may listen to you just a little bit more. And, the fact that you have whatever, you have fibromyalgia or whatever condition you have, it's like, talk about it just a little bit. Every so often, just throw it in and say, hey, my back hurts. You want to know why? Because of this. Because there's so many people that feel in the dark, and they don't have a voice, and they're lonely, and that's how everything gets with suicide, and so many things are so high right now, because so many people are just lost, and COVID made it worse and all that. But everything is just, it's kind of upside down at the moment, and we need kind of like these shining light voices. And as much as, I would love to get attention and be the one, but like, I want to be one of the ones, but I don't want all of that. I want to, like, I've always tried to bring the whole disability community with me. I'm not trying to get popular, famous, or successful, or rich, or anything. Any of those things happen, great. But if I somehow get to a certain, success point, I want to bring the whole disability community with me, because there's so many amazing people that are thriving through just traumatic and constant chronic pain and whatever else every day, but they're still thriving. And that's just, like, to me, it's so beautiful. And so I'm not trying to be a hokey person, but it really is. That's why I try to talk to so many individuals with disabilities, because they inspire me, and I'm proud to be one of them. And I would tell you that many years ago, I would never say I was proud to have a disability. I guarantee it.
I think that one thing that I've learned, that, it doesn't matter what your background is. When I wrote Crossroads, I wasn't really sure where things would go with being an author and writer. And then I found a publisher that said, you should reach out to, and we'll deliver the letter to Merrill Hemingway. And for those of your audience that don't know who Merrill Hemingway is, she's an actress and author, but she's also the granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway, which is, well-renowned author.
Right.
And she has, as glorious as her life has been, and she was very gracious with her time and her energy. Not only for my novel, she wrote the foreword, but she also did a YouTube video explaining why she felt like this was an important, why would a fiction novel be important? But she talked about how in her own life, that she had experienced different types of trauma, and her family history made her oblivious to some of her limitations, because of some of the trauma that she'd experienced. And she also, similar to you, had started a podcast called Out Comes the Sun.
Oh, cool.
And it's all about mental health and how important it is that we find balance and harmony in our lives. And I've kind of changed my perspective on who we stigmatize, because you would think someone that's, acted with Woody Allen and had all these different, grand successes would never have had any type of adversity, to go along with it. But, she struggles with her own mental health. So if it can happen to someone that you would say, hey, they have everything, then of course it can happen to us.
Yeah, I had.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I had Ashton Kutcher's twin brother on, Michael Kutcher, and he has cerebral palsy, and their stories, though they're like intertwined, they're also so different. But it was just this weird faction between the two of them. But like obviously there was their ups and downs of inner struggle with maybe some jealousy or whatever, but also I think Michael was dealing with certain, he was dealing with his own shame towards it, because then Ashton is so popular and famous, and he started to kind of talk about his brother in the public, and I don't think he liked it too much, but then eventually realized that it was a beautiful thing, and he's now owned his own company, and he's doing a lot of great things with his own life, and yeah, you gotta, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought, but you gotta get to a certain place there where you just accept it, and yeah.
And it goes back to like the premise of why I wrote Crossroads. Anger is cruel, fury is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? Envy makes the bones rot. I'd love to be able to take full credit for that statement, but it actually is a proverb. It destroys one's peace.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, a very successful family that you had on, and it could have destroyed if they hadn't gotten it in line and accepted each other's, uniqueness. then it could have completely destroyed their family
Yeah.
and their bond. So it's important that we make a positive impact on others in the world, and not, and find that balance and harmony, and accept each other's uniqueness, and stop judging. Judging of self or others. Sometimes it's judging of self, and sometimes it's judging of others. That's the only way we can find a collective growth and progress that will benefit us and find our well-being.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, hell, me and my sister had issues just because, when I was young and she was born, it was like, oh no, now she's getting all the love and attention. And then as she got a little older, I was dealing with a lot of health stuffs, and then I was getting more of the love and attention, and the jealousy came on her end, and it kind of put a little snag in our relationship to a certain extent, because it was like, and then we're just two young people with no celebrity whatsoever. So you can imagine. Yeah, we get so detached from celebrities, we kind of think that they're not people. And I think some of them, and then a lot of them, they also try to keep a certain image as well. So it's like whatever image we see is what we think of them. And reality, because you're starting to see a lot of celebrities more late coming out with, well, a lot of them honestly have been killing themselves, unfortunately. But also you're starting to see a lot of celebrities come out with these rare conditions, and you're like, oh, see, they can get that. Like, oh, see, it's not just every so often. It's not just us. It's like just because they're rich doesn't, it's like Steve Jobs died of a really horrible condition, and all the money in the world couldn't save him. And it's like, yeah, like this can happen to you. Like to me, when I talk about mental health and depression, suicide, like, I always go to Robin Williams, like how successful he was. And everyone's like, well, he was broke or what. That's not why he killed himself. I think a lot of it went into the fact that he just wasn't the same person anymore. He was getting slower with his condition, and he wasn't as quick-witted, and he just couldn't vocalize some of the characters he was doing as he used to, and so on. And he just started to just turn on himself. And, that guy, even if he was broke, that guy could have did a concert. He could have done a world tour of his comedy tomorrow. Or he could have, they were working on sequels to Mrs. Doubtfire and some of his other movies. So it's like he ended his life because he was on fire inside, and he couldn't handle life anymore. But he had all the fame and adoration and love and money anyone could want. So, yeah, I think we need to stop kind of separating them as, like, people, because they are. It's just, like I said, that celebrity and that image, whatever they show us is what we think and what we know. And and the reality is, like, I hate all the tabloids, and, like, I don't want to, I want to know I don't even really care about them, to be honest. Like, I like these people for what they put out, their music, their movies, or whatever. I like that. If they want to share their lives, great. I'm willing to listen. But if they don't, they don't. I don't really care who they're sleeping with. I don't care what, who did what said. Someone said a racial slur. I don't give a shit because, they're human. They do what everyone else does. Everyone makes mistakes. So who cares?
Right. I would agree.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm working on my second novel. It's a series, trying to get it edited. And then I'm also producing a workbook that I've done with lots of my students on self-balancing career and family, finding a balance in life that brings you joy. So hopefully the workbook will be out. It's a self-help book. Should be out by the beginning of the year. And the novel probably in about 6 months.
That's awesome. I didn't ask you, but is there a name for your specific type of learning disability you have?
No, I've never been. They have not diagnosed me, and when I'm old, so they didn't do diagnoses back then. They just set you in a corner if you acted bad.
Okay.
So I've never gone. I would say it's probably ADHD and maybe a little bit of dyslexia. I'm not sure at what level. And then like I said, I have scoliosis and other physical disabilities.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have a few friends and a few people I've had on the show with scoliosis, so I'm well aware of that. Were you I'm not trying to give your age, but were you the generation that got hit by rulers in school?
Yeah.
My mom did, so.
Yes, rulers, paddles. They did it. Yes, it was not illegal back then.
Hey, it's a side note, but like, can you imagine the things that went on in your generation? Because there's some things in my generation, like even like people were still allowed to. I'm 34, 35 now. People like for half of my life, people could still smoke on a plane. So there's certain
Right.
things in life. And like, I'm sure there's way more for you. Like obviously hitting kids with rulers in class to just like you can't even say Merry Christmas anymore, let alone touch a kid. So we've gotten to such a crazy place now. And again, and some things have changed for the good. Don't get me wrong, but there are some things where it's just like sometimes a kid just does need to get hit. I hate to say it because I needed to get hit because there was times I just was a brat, and I didn't get hit by teachers, but I got hit by my mom. And there was times where she sent me to anger management classes, which I don't know if they really help, but I was dealing with a lot. But still, there was times where I'd act out, I'd throw things or whatever, and I would just whatever, and I needed to be hit, and I just could imagine, like especially for you growing up in those times, like I don't know, that like obviously there's a difference between hitting and sexually assaulting
Yes,
and things like that.
there's definitely a difference between battling and abuse. People can take it too far, and that's I think the problem is if you didn't put limitations, people would take it, especially if they're angry, they're going to take it too far. So it's better just not to, especially if you're in that kind of a mode.
Yeah, and I guess because one of the good things with the internet, a lot of this stuff is some of the stuff that was hidden. Just a lot of, especially when it comes to kids being sexually assaulted and things like in churches and schools, a lot of that stuff is now coming to the light. Whereas like that was just like, oh, well, you just didn't talk about it, and it's like no,
Right.
no, now we talk about it because it needs to. So some things have really changed for the good. It's just they kind of get overshadowed by all the negative crap that has come out from the internet and just where we're headed, where everyone's offended by everything and all that. But, it's life. You just take the good with the bad, I suppose. But,
Right.
and it's just kind of adjusting. And again, having a disability, we find our own ways to adjust. So it's like, it's not hard for me to do anymore. I just kind of do it. I just kind of
Right.
morph myself into whatever shape I have to, and I'll make that piece fit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you? I don't know if you said it. Do you have any websites or anything where you can promote your book and so people can
Sure.
go see it?
If anybody's interested in learning more about me, they can go to Rhonda, Rhonda Parker, Parker, Taylor, TAYLOR.com. That's my website, and then all my social medias follow the same thing, RhondaParkerTaylor.com. And I'd be glad to, engage with anybody. My book's on the website there. Also, it's on Amazon, BAM, and Barnes & Noble. Any major bookstore or even independent bookstores. You can go into the independent bookstores and they can order it if they don't have it on their shelf.
Sure, awesome. Last question. Like, were you always this kind of like upbeat and positive? Is this like something that's like, passed down from your family, or like, were you always like this?
I think so, because one of our family slogans is "If it's meant to be, it's up to me."
Okay.
And that comes from my father. He would always say, "If it's meant to be, it's up to me." And then the other slogan that we always say is "Every day's great." So if you can say that to yourself and you have these kind of affirmations, then I think your outlook on things kind of changes and shifts, even if it's a bad day. Sometimes I just name it. This is a bad, crappy day. Thank you, thank you, Lord, for a terrible day, and then go on and say, but every day is great, and every day that you're able to successfully accomplish, then it is great, because not everybody has that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. I thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
I thank you for having me, and I hope everybody out there has a blessed day.
You too. You keep in touch, okay?
All right. Thank you. You have a good day.
You too.
Goodbye.
Bye. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. My brain fog is kicking my ass. I got a small headache and I probably should have canceled this, but it went well. Not a big fan of me in this episode, but it is what it is. And I was kind of pretty sharp yesterday, but man, I got to get a hold of this mental fog or brain fog shit, because it's just, I'm running right into it. I'm tripping over myself and can't access certain words and losing my train of thought, and it's awful. But either way, positivity all day, baby. Yes, I made that rhyme on purpose. My sweet boy is Boleto. Hi, handsome. You are laying. I'm not gonna have him purr for you because he's all, his eyes are closed. He looks so cute in his big old fur ball. He's wrapped up in a little ball there. But yeah, everything's going all right. Staying really positive. Still pursuing the next job in my life. We'll see where that headed. And I have a job interview coming up. Problem is this episode's coming out later, so I shouldn't even talk about this. So by the time this episode will be out it won't be out for a while. So I'll have to do something in between to kind of update you guys. But yeah, thank you for being with me here, guys. I'm babbling. I really am losing my mind is just going off the rails. So forgive me. It's killing me right now. But thank you for being on this show with me. I love you guys. I love the support. Please reach out, comment, like, subscribe, share, and all that. Because it really could help somebody. It obviously helps me, helps the show to grow. And so many people are afraid to kind of just, take an effort to share something to someone. But it can definitely help somebody. And not only me, but help someone who's just struggling. So please, if you are struggling out there, hang in there. If you're listening to this, I hope it helps you. And I'm here for you. If you need anything, reach out. Come find me. It's My Blurred Opinion on TikTok and Instagram. So, all right, guys. See you next week. All right. Bye, everyone.